Hello guys, welcome to Code by Nachi. Today I will be talking to you about Vue.js validation using Vuelidate. Now why validation? Validation is an important aspect of web development right now. It's a way for us as software developers to guide the users towards what we want them to provide in order for our applications to work exactly how we intended them. So take for example, you are expecting an email address. Well, the user decides to provide something else, and it all goes downhill from there, right? And so validation is your way as a developer to guide the user towards providing input that is required by your application and in the way that it is required. So today I'll be introducing the Vuelidate library in Vue.js. There are quite a number of other libraries out there, and some component frameworks actually come with validation built right in, so you would be able to do stuff like that. But if you write code with pure HTML, CSS, and you don't have the luxury that component libraries like Vuetify provide, then you must have a look at Vuelidate. It's one of the best validation libraries out there, and I think it's worth a shot to actually try to bring it in the project. It has tons and tons of already built-in validations, and also provides opportunity to write some custom ones. So yeah, we will be taking a look at Vuelidate today. So let's dive right in. Yep. So right now we'll be creating Vue.js Vite project with Tailwind CSS. We would also be installing Tailwind CSS forms and also the Vuelidate library itself. You want the Vue.js option, and if you're familiar with TypeScript or prefer plain or JavaScript, then you can choose between the two, but I would just go with the first option. So we'll get into the Vuelidate demo project we just created and run npm install. Nice. And in order to see if it runs, we would just simply run npm run dev. But right now our major concern is to actually install Tailwind CSS forms, and this should be pretty easy to configure. We still have some part of the configuration to do within the project, but I would also be showing this in a moment. So we absolutely need Tailwind CSS forms like this. So this installs the Vuelidate core library and also the validators. So here we have our Vue.js and Vite project configured with Tailwind CSS forms, and we already have the Vuelidate library also installed with npm. Now here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have my code base here with VS Code, and with the Mac you can just split this to have your browser here somewhere by the right, and your code base by the left, so you can immediately see whatever changes you've made. Of course, you can do this if you have multiple monitors and stuff like that, but yeah, I just like to have this especially for small projects. So I'll quickly walk you through what I did while I pause the video. From the index.html, we have a link to the railway font. I just really like it a lot. on some of my web projects, so I thought to bring it in. We have this Vuelidate demo here, which is the title of our project, and which is what is here on the browser. And we also have some configuration for Tailwind, as you would see here. Now, you can always find this in the Tailwind CSS documentation on how to do this stuff, but I made a couple of changes. First of all, adding this various states that our HTML elements can possibly be in: active, hover, disabled, and you would see how it all works here, but it's kind of what gives this form, for example, this field, this blue ring around it, I guess you could call it that. Anyway, so yeah, it's these various states. You can pretty much with Tailwind determine what should be visible on your screen when you are viewing, for example, these kinds of applications. And also, we configured the Tailwind CSS forms. Don't forget to do that while you install it. It's also part of the Tailwind CSS documentation, and a link will be included with this video. Also, we created an index.css file, and this is pretty much basically what you need for Tailwind CSS to provide your own CSS classes using Tailwind, of course, as a foundation. And we have this text fields CSS class, and it's pretty much what is actually allowing this to be disabled right to work right now. And we also have this text field error, which we would use to display a field that has some problem as far as Vuelidate is concerned, which actually shows that our validation works. It's not in use yet, but I would be showing you this in a moment. And after you're done defining your index.css class, then you need to this file, you need to import this into your main.js, and that's pretty much all you need. And we have here in this components folder, we have the Vuelidate demo.vue file. It's a single file component which is responsible for what you see on your screen. We have this nice separation that Vue.js has for templates, which I guess you can fit in everything HTML here. And then we have scripts, which is for basically everything JavaScript. And you have styles for CSS, probably scoped, in case you want to define something that would only be used in this component. And I just gave it the name Vuelidate demo. You can call it anything you want, but I guess it makes sense, right? And inside this HTML we have divs, and this is what is most important to us at the moment. We have these fields, about 6 of them. For our demo, we have the first name, last name, other names, age, email, website, and we should be bringing some validation to this field. For now, you can type in whatever you want. It pretty much doesn't care this stage, and the submit also doesn't work at the moment, so we would need to bring in the Vuelidate validations to make sure these things make sense and they're exactly what we expect. And we can also, when we hit submit, we are not going to be calling any server side today, but we would be checking to make sure that it's ready to actually get to the server side, which is basically what we are doing in this tutorial. And that's it. I guess we can get to bring in Vuelidate now. So we absolutely need to define a data section of our single file component, and it's an object. And for now, I prefer to actually store this in a person object. It's gonna have a first name. I would just use underscore here, no problem. And we have the last name, and all the names, of course. Age, email, websites, and this is enough. And actually what we should be doing is giving our V model to the input fields, of course. Now this is still Vue.js at this point and not Vuelidate, but we absolutely need to make this available. Person.firstName, and I'm just going to copy this and good, paste. This is going to be the last name, paste. This is going to be all the names, paste. This is age, paste. This is email, and paste. Website. Oh dear. Oh, perfect. And now when we I'm just going to add something here to kind of clear these fields when they happen. You can see the V model from age. For me, this is definitive proof that this actually works. I am going to just duplicate this button here and remind me. I'm going to give a, let's imagine, right of 2, kind of separate them, and I'm just going to do everything with red instead of blue. And this is going to be clear fields, something like this. Perfect. Yeah, this works. And I'm going to define a method section, and would have a clear fields function or method. And this is just going to reset reset the person fields to whatever values they have, they used to have, kind of get us ready for get us ready for another round of input. So yep, this works. So when we type something here, it doesn't matter what, we and yeah, we need to add a click handler to this, and I'm just gonna call clearfields as the method to call. So when we type and we hit clearfields, it kind of just clears them, as you can see, right? And now we bring in Vuelidate. We absolutely need 2 imports for Vuelidate to work. We would need 2 imports here. We need to import use Vuelidate from Vuelidate core, and we would also need to import some validators from Vuelidate's validators, of course. And the ones we would need here would absolutely be required. We would need numeric. We would need email, for example, and possibly URL as well. Yeah, so these ones are enough for us to check what we have on our form right now. This says we need to provide a value. You must absolutely provide a value. We would also use numeric, which I guess works for the age. When you want to say, hey, you can only add numbers here and nothing else. And this validator checks that your emails your email is correctly formatted, and this works for URLs. And we would be using it to validate the website. We would be skipping other names. I think it's a perfect way to show that you don't have to validate everything, and this is allowed to be blank, for example, and on your server side it should just be null or your database or something. But yeah, the next step would be actually to bring in Vuelidate itself, and it's usually somewhere here as a $. I don't know why, but I guess I liked it from the Vuelidate documentation. You can also make use of it if you like it. You can call this anything else, but I guess V $ actually would be nice, and you would see why. Yeah, so you would be bringing in Vuelidate, and the next and the most important thing as far as the validators are concerned is to provide validations function here as part of the Vue.js setup. Now this doesn't work with the normal Vue.js projects, but with Vuelidate you have to define your validations here, and you can specifically request for specific validations for certain fields. Now we intend to validate the person objects entirely with these individual fields, and however you define them here is actually how you need to also define it in the validation. So it works quite similarly to your data field, returns an object as well, but now we would be returning this person object, and of course the fields we intend to validate for sure are the first name, and here for the first name we would be we just want to say, well, this would be required. Let's go with this for now. This would be required, and you can do this also for every other thing here. What I'd like to do is just to copy this, paste. We have the last name, which would also be required. The other name we don't intend to validate, so we will leave it blank. The age is required, and it's not just required, but it's also a numeric field. And for the email, it's required, and it's an email field, so we would like it to be checked, properly formatted. And for the website, it's required, and it's a URL. And we have what we absolutely need to validate in with Vuelidate. Of course, there's no way to tell right now if the validations work, because, well, there's no way to visually display this, right? There's no way to show that this actually works. So what we need to do is we would be making changes to our input fields, probably also providing a new paragraph under this field to kind of display the error message if there is one. And you can customize it as much as you want, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. So what I would be doing, if you recall, we had this index.css file where we have the CSS class for our text field with errors. Well, we would be using that here right now. So what we're going to do is say, well, we have a class. I'm just going to do this for the first one. We have a class here, and we intend it to bind it to some based on some inputs. So we would, I'm just going to take this away. So V $ from Vuelidate, and I would be checking for person, and I would be checking for the first name, and $ error. If there is an error on the first name, then I would like you to use the text fields error class defined here, and if there isn't an error, well, you can have the normal text text fields CSS class, and we can end the code here. Yeah, so basically we're saying if there is an error on the first name, well, you can try to show us that we have for example, this we have a ring around it that should be red that says, hey, you have a problem with this field and you need to fix it. And if there is no error, well, yeah, field remains as it is, right? and we would need a paragraph right under the input field to just kind of display the error we have. For me, what I like to do is to say I need you to have a red text. It's really tiny text. Yeah, we don't want it to get all the attention, of course, but yeah, we would need to have that. And for every error, in this person dot first name and errors, and you can bind this to the it has a UID, so that way we can quickly display whatever error message the validator gives us. And this is highly customizable, but for now I would just use the simple message that this has. And yeah, so on submit, we don't yet have a click handler for submit button, and I'm just going to call a method called submit right here. So what I like to do is when we hit submit, we can quickly, the first thing we would like to do is to kind of check if we have any errors. And how you do this with Vuelidate is to say we have this V $, and this method called touch. And what this does is to kind of check all the fields that it's supposed to validate and find out if it's if any of them have errors. Of course, right now all of them have errors. They're not yet what we want them to be, but yeah, you can see what we are trying to achieve here. And this just says the value is required because as far as the first name is concerned, we only need to make sure that the value is actually provided for it. And you can see this nice red ring, and this is as a result of this this nice check we have here to make sure that if there's an error, well, we have this CSS class that gets loaded only when there's an error on the form. And this is quite nice. And if you type, it goes away, right? It says value is required, stuff like that. So here I've taken the liberty of adding the validations to the other fields. We have the first name, which used to be there before. The last name has also been added. Don't forget we're skipping the other names, but we also have the age, and we have email addresses and the website. And all of these validations have all of these fields rather have these paragraphs under them that kinds of gives a description of the particular error the user needs to fix. And yeah, and on submit we have this method that tries to trigger the validation to make sure everything is fine. So right off the bat, if you click on submit here, you can see it's already telling us the specific fields that have problems and the way they need to be fixed. So we need to provide a value, and I will just demo this email. For example, if you have some value in it, then it says, well, this is not a valid email address, and it's instantly becomes valid when the input is correct, and goes back to being invalid when it's not. And we also have this website, so you can see it says it's not a valid URL address, but when you have I'm just going to say that medium.com, and you can see that it's correct now, and it ceases to be whenever the value is wrong. And yeah, so this is validation in a nutshell with Vuelidate. I would also like to show you, for example, when you refresh this and you start to type, you can see that for now these validation checks are actually not they're not being checked right now, and including these ones. And the reason is because we have what we included this method in our submit function here, which basically triggers the validation, right? But in the event that you actually want to be able to get your fields to start the validation as soon as the user starts typing and as soon as they visit the form, then there's something called this auto dirty in Vuelidate, and that is exactly what we need. So we can, for example, add it here. It's this $ auto dirty, and give it a value of true. And when you have this in the validations, as soon as you start typing or you go back, it instantly starts to check. And we can just add it for all of them actually. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's take the comma along with us. Paste. 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 Great. And now when we type, yeah, the check is it's instantly starts to check all of this stuff for us. And sometimes you want a custom validation message. This just says value is required, or this says well, all of them say value is required, but sometimes you might want to actually say something more meaningful than that. And you can actually do that in Vuelidate as well. I'll be showing you how now. And to trigger helpers, we would need to bring in something else here with the validators, and this would be helpers like this. And right here in the validations function, we would like to do this with required. For example, for the first name, we have we could say helpers.with message, and we would just like to say first name is required, right? And we can have required here itself. So this basically says we need to provide something else other than value is required. We want to specifically say first name is required. And when you're missing this right now, it says first name is required instead of the generic value is required message. And that's all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I would be providing this code base in the URL as well on GitHub, so make sure you check it out and play around with the various validations method you have. Of course, you can also go to the Vuelidate the Vuelidate library here, the documentation, and you can find a lot of custom validators and a lot of interesting functions and methods you would be using for your validations. There are more advanced cases of validation, of course, and Vuelidate allows you to provide as many as you can possibly need. You can make use of the built-in ones. You can also provide some custom validations if you are interested in building something like that. So see you guys next time. Bye.